hygienic, heartiness, good quality, slaughtering methods, for example, contamination-free principles. Not only that, for example, packing, animal feed, etc., etc. All is actually surrounded with that, like ecosystem, creating an ecosystem. So with that reason, when it comes to halal food, it's not only in food or halal, let's say, but also all industries related to Muslims' way of life. Recent data shows that the global Muslim population is growing at a rate of 3% annual, with an approximate total of 1.8 billion Muslims, whose number, inshallah, will be go up, as I mentioned, 2 billion, but inshallah by 2030, after 7 years, minimum 2.2 billion. Inshallah would be more. Then the halal industry is actually going to be more needed, more essential for us. Despite of the fact that the trend of globalization has become a giant pillar to economies and industries, alhamdulillah, Muslims are doing their job very well. There is every appearance that the numbers and facts show great opportunities in halal industry and halal food in the world. Again, the data shows that there is a significant rise in global halal industry, which 23% having a value of almost 700 billion a year. Although including Islamic finance, the total estimated worth of the global halal industry is around 2.3 trillion. Can you imagine? 2.3 trillion. So the halal industry has now become a global phenomenon that comprises a number of service industries, which includes halal food industry, halal tourism, halal finance, halal fashion, halal media. Media is so important. It has to be also halal. Currently, the Asia Pacific region is at the top in global halal industry market share. And in terms of major sectors, the halal food and beverage is outstanding and bringing the attraction of more investors and entrepreneurs around the globe. The halal food and beverage sector accounted for 36% of the overall global halal industry. Islamic finance is at the top with, of course, is very fast growing industry, 43%, followed by halal fashion, 7%, although it's very little, but alhamdulillah, Indonesia and Malaysia is doing well, I think, in halal fashion. Media and recreation, 6%. Halal travel, halal tourism, 4%. And cosmetics, 2%. Cosmetic is also important for the Muslim families. We shouldn't ignore that. And pharmaceutics things, 2%. It is actually in 2060, and Muslims spend a total of 1.24 trillion USD on food and beverages. So it's big market actually. While compound annual growth rate was 7.6% in 2016. You know, it may now, of course, must increase more. So it is expected to rise 1.93 trillion by this year, by 2023, around the globe. So we can say that it's 2 trillion, in fact. So in order to create awareness and to establish a globally known web network in halal industry, many countries and many countries should organize conferences. Just Alhamdulillah, Gontor is doing seminars, other workshops around the world and among the Muslim countries. So
Professor,
recent years.
excuse me, we're having 1 minute, maybe, inshallah. In 1 minute.
1 minute.
One or 2 minutes.
Really, I just started. I can't believe that.
Okay. 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
My God. All right then. Well, recent years, the Global Halal Conference, the WHC, is being held again in Kuala Lumpur and Alhamdulillah held in Istanbul. I think many participants attended from Indonesia to that halal conference. It was last year. Alhamdulillah, doing well. So let's see global halal markets statistics in somehow little bit differently. Of course, the halal product market is expected to grow from 45.3 billion USD in 2016 to over 58 billion by this year. According to the report, halal food had a global market value of approximately, of course, by 2017, as I mentioned, somehow 1.5 trillion USD. Also expected to reach 2.6 trillion USD by this year, inshallah. So I don't know how much Muslim countries would take their portions from this market share. So the global market revenue of halal food is likely to rise from about 1.5 trillion to $2.5 trillion by 2024, next year, inshallah. So I think I have many things to say about the transformation of halal industry. I think we should mention also halal travel, halal tourism. MashaAllah, Indonesia is doing very well in terms of halal tourism, halal travel, halal industry, halal finance. I would like to mention somehow, for example, the development of Indonesia in very recent year will be among the 5th most strongest country around the world, among the 20 richest countries. Because physically, I have seen when I visited Indonesia in different part of the country, believe me, mashallah, everybody is working very hard. Students, lecturers, industry people, they are trying to develop something, create new things, produce new things, and try to export, make business around the world. That really makes Indonesia, inshallah, very much highly developed and fast growing country. But please don't be selfish, having all these things. Share with us and with Muslim country and grow together. Well, I'm really happy to be here, and although a lot of things should be shared, if possible, maybe we can, inshallah, make this my presentation as a paper almost ready, but inshallah just making little bit changes and it becomes paper. I don't know whether Dr. Effendi, there will be
yes,
so after conference publishing somehow conference proceedings or something like that.
I need to check to the organizing committee about that, but hopefully they will make
inshallah.
it. We can
so I don't want to take of your much time. Once again, I would like to thank you, all of you, being with you, being beautiful people. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, jazakumullah khairan. Some important points to highlight. Professor Saim highlight that halal is not only about food, but this is a way of life. So everything should be included there. and he's mentioning the expected value of 2.6 trillion in trillion 2.6 trillion US dollar in this year, and then we should also take care of halal media, halal fashion, and this is a global phenomenon that as a Muslim we need to take part in it. It's very interesting. And now maybe a little formal introduction to Professor Saim. Just now it was more personal introduction. So Professor Saim KDB is currently the chairman of European Union Halal Standards Committee and teach in Department of Economics, School of Economics and Management Sciences. He is a research fellow in International Council of Islamic Finance Educator and Center for Islamic Economics, International Islamic University, Malaysia. He was born in Turkey, studied in Al-Azhar University, the University of Jordan, and obtained his MPhil and PhD from Durham University. MashaAllah. if there is an association for alumni, I should join there, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, Professor Saim KDB. Now we are going to MashaAllah, barakallah fikum. It's very interesting and empowering and I believe inspiring speech from Professor Dr. Saim KDB. Now we would like to listen the talk and the presentation from Ustad Muhammad Fadli bin Abdul Rahman. Is Director of Halal Advisory and Research Institute Selangor, or HARIS, at Islamic University Selangor, University Islam Selangor, with over 15 years of experience in the halal industry, specializing in the field of halal management system and food safety management system. He obtained higher education in bachelor's degree in food science, mashallah, with business management, and then to master's degree again in food science, mashallah, at University Kebangsaan UKM. Also a Malaysian skills certification holder in the field of halal auditing from the Malaysian Department of Skills, and Sharia certificate in banking and finance from International Research Center of Islamic Economy and Finance. And in national level, he is certified as trainer from Halal Professional Board, Department of Islamic Development Malaysia, HPB Jakim, and food handler training, LPM, from the Ministry of Health Malaysia. MashaAllah, barakallahu fikum, Ustaz Abdul Rahman. Thank you for joining us in this opportunity. We will benefit a lot from your insight, your experience, and of course, Malaysia is one of the most leading country when it comes to the halal industry. So we'd like to hear a lot from your presentation. Tafadhal, Ustaz Fadli.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Dr. Muhammad Taufik Afandi, respective speakers and experts, Honorable Prof. Dr. Saim KDB from University of Karabük, Turkey, and then Honorable Dr. Ahmad Afandi from University of Darussalam Gontor. Thank you for inviting and giving me a chance, opportunity as a representative from University Islam Selangor WIS for this second FEMFEST International Conference on Economic Management and Business, FECOMS 2023. So it is my great pleasure to be here at this prestigious international event to discuss and share about the halal talent ecosystem on Malaysian perspective. So I think as a quick sharing, basically Professor Dr. Saim have shared with us on the market, on the halal industry. It's a big market, a huge market. So the global halal industry itself presents a huge opportunity with the market now valued at maybe in my research is 3.1 trillion. Maybe it's about that. As mentioned by Professor Dr. Professor Dr. Saim, about 2.3 trillion of the halal market. And then the market is expected to grow, expected to grow from time to time, and then in 2030, expected to grow to $5 trillion in 2030. So why halal industry is a great market potential and demand? So as we can from the next slide, there are many factors, but maybe we can put among the factors is because of the first one, increased awareness among the Muslim itself, because of the higher education among the Muslims. The second one is nowadays, as mentioned by Professor Saim, that halal is not limited to food only nowadays. So it involves the ecosystem, the lifestyle. So halal is the way of life, as mentioned by Prof. And then the third factor is the non-Muslim are more sensitive to hygienic and safety foods. So nowadays, halal has become the universal values, not only among the Muslims, but also among the non-Muslims. Okay, next, we go to the next slide. The new paradigm shift in halal industry has changed in the late 20th century. Specifically in Malaysia, we can see that the development of halal industry is started since 1970s, starting from Malaysia and awakened the world the early 21st century to this emerging new market. The huge size of halal market and economics cake is sufficient to be shared by everyone. It's very huge market. There is no competition to begin with because it is so big enough for everybody. So the collaboration between the countries is vital in order to strengthen the global halal ecosystem. The commitment of Malaysia in halal industry development is undeniable, as it is the first Muslim majority countries to recognize the importance of halal market. The Malaysian government is the first to announce the development of the halal sector as a potential growth engine for the national economy and even incorporated halal into their long-term economic planning. So as we can see from the slide, the Malaysia government has established what we call as Halal Industry Master Plan 1.0 since 2008 to set Malaysia to be as the global reference center for discipline halal integrity, and the second one as a global leader in the innovation, production and trade of a number of halal related sectors. I also would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Indonesia for their launch of Halal Master Plan 2023-2029. Congratulations. Okay, next. With a comprehensive halal ecosystem, Malaysia is endowed with a competitive advantage to fully capitalize this timely opportunity. Then Malaysia has developed its second Halal Master Plan in 2018 to catalyze Malaysia's strengthen towards development of its halal industry holistically. So this foundation of HIMP or Halal Industry Master Plan 2030, which has been developed based on Malaysia's halal ecosystem strength, is parallel with need of personnel in the halal certification compliance. So as we can see from the slide, one of the strategic thrusts that highlighted under this Malaysia Halal Industry Master Plan is establishing a larger pool of halal industry experts to meet the global needs. So next. So the early inception of the ecosystem approach was mainly used to deal with the management of biological related ecosystem, such as natural resources and environmental management. The use of ecosystem approach outside the biological domain is seen in the work of Mo 1999, who used the ecosystem approach to explain the firm's perspective. In his work, he used the ecological concept of co-evolution to explain sustainability. Mo offered a definition of the business ecosystem as the structure and behavior of a network of high-tech organizations that share a key technological platform and the way individual firms can flourish in such an environment. So according to Nurul Huda Nordin et al. In 2014, we can define halal ecosystem as the holistic approach to visualize the components, the process of the halal certification as essential component, the actors in the certification process and their related agencies and the regulations. So next. So halal ecosystem is a dynamic system. So what is a dynamic system? The system embedded with a complex network of businesses, institutions, government agencies, and non-government organizations. As we can see from this slide, the halal ecosystem can be defined as the entire atmosphere of halal industry that comprise of 5 main elements or components, which are the first one is production, services, infrastructure, governmental support, and then human capital. Next. So in the concept of halal, the terms that mean permissibility concerning individual of Islamic faith the concept of halal itself is misunderstood and misinterpreted in different ways, in different societies, in different school of thought. Most people tend to associate it with just only food, halal food only. Actually, halal industry touches every aspect of our life. If we look at the supply chain of food, the halal sign signifies the process from farm to fork or from farm to table. What does this mean? What about the food that we feed these animals? There are elements in the feed that are not permissible. That's what the halal sign also signifies. Halal is not just a slaughter process or how we kill the animal only. It is a multi-dimensional concept, and for halal to withstand scrutiny, it must create a value proposition that is higher than the current offerings. Nowadays, the demand for halal is not only confined to food and beverages. Muslim consumers now are also looking for the halalness in their fashion, as mentioned by Prof. Saim earlier. Tourism, wisata halal, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, media and entertainment, as well as other service sectors such as logistics, finance, etc., etc. So next. So in order to meet the demands and satisfy the taste of buying public of the halal market segment, industry players and manufacturers have made various efforts to ensure their produce are quality and, most importantly, fulfill conditions and requirements set out by the Islamic law and halal standards. So moreover, they also have taken extra effort by subscribing to more stringent compliance procedures stipulated by the certification bodies. For instance, in Malaysia, we have the Department of Islamic Development, Malaysia, or we call as JAKIM. And instead, we have State Islamic Religious Council, or we call as Majlis Agama Islam Negeri, as the competent authority for halal certification. Recently in Malaysia, we have new revision of manual procedure for Malaysia halal certification, or also known as MPPHM 2020. And also the government or the authority has introduced the new manual, which called as Manual of Malaysia Halal Management System, MHMS 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the next slide. So one of the requirements under Malaysian halal certification is the company need to hire specific Muslim personnel which are responsible to oversee and manage the halal integrity in the company. So in this case, the appointment of halal executive is a part of the internal halal control for the certificate holder. The requirement for halal executive was first addressed in the second revision of Malaysia Halal Food Standards, or we call as MS 1500. In 2009, executive applicants, especially for medium and large enterprises, to appoint halal executive, apart from establishing halal assurance system and internal halal committee. The needs for halal executive has become mandatory feature in the halal certification procedures in Malaysia. So next. So these are the parts of the criteria as halal executive in Malaysia. The first one, the halal executive must be Muslims. Second, they must be Malaysian. And then in terms of education-wise, the personnel need to have at least minimum diploma in halal management or equivalent, or 5 years experience in halal industry. And then the personnel need to have halal professional board, halal executive certificate from halal professional board JAKIM. And then this personnel need to be officially appointed, and then they have to be permanent or full-time in that particular company. So next. So next. So the traditional elements of talent management flow consists of acquiring, mobilizing, growing, and motivating talent. At the acquiring talent stage, the process involves sourcing, onboarding, and selection of talent. In talent ecosystem approach, the business needs have been adapted as they evolve, ensuring the other parts of the system reflect those needs as well, with its cohesive, interrelated, and interdependent characteristics. Izdihar Baharin and Azra Abdullah in 2011 defined talent ecosystem as a loose, interconnected relationship between talent and the environment in which it operates, such as the education system that mold them, the training and incentive at workplace, and the norms and culture they live in. Talent management should not be seen as a cost in isolation, but as an important investment for future of the business and country. Based on research by Nurhayati Rafida, 2020, the model of halal talents sustainability describes that clear career path and training should be given emphasis, particularly in equipping the participants with adequate knowledge and experience. So next. According to Susanna and Aaron 2020, the two main benefits of a talent ecosystem compared to traditional approaches to talent programs are the ability to activate around the unique needs of talent segments and tighter connections to the business and capacity to scale. In Malaysia, Halal Development Council or Halal Industry Development Council has been established in 2019, which involve various halal development related ministries to ensure the growth of halal industry contributes significantly towards socio-economic and is in line with government aspiration. So Halal Development Corporation or HDC act as a secretariat for the council with 4 committees which involve JAKIM as secretariat for Halal Certificate Technical Committee, Department of Standard Malaysia or DSM as secretariat for Traceability and Standard Development Committee, Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development as secretariat for Industry Development Committee, and last but not least is Ministry of International Trade and Industry as secretariat for Internalization Committee. So next. So next. There are at least 5 agencies which are identified in halal talent ecosystem in Malaysia. So next. The first agency is Malaysian Qualification Agency or MQA, which is under Ministry of Higher Education. This agency was established on November 27 to implement the Malaysian Qualification Framework or MQF as a basis for quality assurance of higher education and as the reference point for the criteria and standard for national qualification. In 2021, the agency has published the first edition of program standard, which called as Halal Studies, as a guideline for higher education providers in Malaysia on the minimum levels of acceptable practices in designing and offering halal studies program at tertiary level. The document covers different levels of standards, award individual qualifications from certificate, which is at level 3 from MQF, to doctoral degree at level 8 from MQF levels. The second agency is Department of Skill Development, which is under Ministry of Human Resource, that was established on 2nd May 1989. So this department is under Ministry and regulate the implementation of skills training to produce knowledge workers or K workers for the purpose of employment and recognition at national and international levels, and to conduct research and develop job competency standards and expertise to continuously improve the quality of skilled human resource who can contribute to the economic growth of the country. So in terms of halal industry, this agency is responsible to coordinate the development of halal industry occupational framework, OF, in 2021, which consists of the common core competencies required by personnel in halal industry that enables grouping of homogeneous job based on job scope. Common core halal competencies will enable other industries to identify which occupational pillar in respective industry is related to halal. Okay, the third agency is Department of Standard Malaysia, which was established on 1996. This agency is under Ministry of International Trade and Industry, or we call as MITI, to act as the national standards body and the national accreditation body. So this agency is responsible to develop Malaysian standard for halal profession general requirements. So this is the latest, the current standard that published by Jabatan Standard Malaysia or Department of Standard Malaysia this year, recently. The purpose of the standard is to provide the organized structure for halal profession requirements to certify and recognize in order for them to provide their services to halal industry. The standard provides the definition and requirements for halal talent. Second, for halal expert. And then last one is halal professional. The fourth agency is JAKIM, or Department of Islamic Development Malaysia, which was established in 1997 to replace National Council of Islamic Affairs of Malaysia. So in halal talent ecosystem, the role is played by Halal Professional Board, or HPB, which was established since 2014 and officially officiated in 2017. HPB is responsible to develop training modules and assessing the competency of halal training providers and trainees. Last but not least, the final agency involved in halal talent ecosystem is HDC, or Halal Development Corporation, which was established on 18 September 2006 under the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. The main function of agency is to spearhead the development of Malaysia's integrated and comprehensive halal ecosystem and infrastructure to position Malaysia as the most competitive country leading in the global halal industry. HDC also.
I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Doctor?
I think there are several questions already coming, and I think I need to do justice. We will have 20 minutes for each speaker, so maybe 1 more minute for.
Okay, 1 more minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will-
Okay, Doctor Afandi. Okay, inshallah. So the last agency is HDC, which also been appointed as industry lead body by the Ministry of Human Resource to drive the development of skilled workforce in halal industry in accordance to requirements of Department of Skill Development Malaysia. So as conclusion for the first round, the halal industry continues to globalize due to rising international demand and mass strive to produce goods and services which are both halal and tayyib. The demand for competent halal talent should be in place as long as there is demand for halal products and services and growing scale of halal markets domestically and globally. Thus, it is very important to coordinate among agencies to ensure the sustainability of halal talent ecosystem. With that, thank you very much. I welcome any question later on Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ustaz Fadil Rahman. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan. MashaAllah, it's very amazing talk. And MashaAllah, just now I've mentioned the Ustaz Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman's position in national level, but we need also to know at the state level, he is a member of Selangor Halal Management Policy Action Plan Coordination Committee. And then he also previously served as the head of Bachelor of Management degree program Halal Industry at Selangor University, Selangor International Islamic University College, or QUIS. And MashaAllah, QUIS is one of our best partner as well in Malaysia, and one of the earliest
Alhamdulillah.
Malaysia that built relation with Gontor, even when we were still ISIT, we were still institute, even before our transformation to be university. MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan. And now we are going to listen from Ustaz Ahmad Afandi Mahfud, PhD, CPIF, a brief profile from Ustaz Ahmad Afandi Mahfud, but little disclaimer, we don't have any family relationship. We were both in Afandi clan, but of course we were both from the descendant of Prophet Adam. MashaAllah, but alhamdulillah, it's a very nice coincidence to be here together with Ustaz Ahmad Afandi. A little introduction to Ustaz Ahmad Afandi Mahfud. So he's currently appointed as consultant for IFAAS, United Kingdom, and Sharia advisor for Islamic equity crowdfunding platform firm in Indonesia, the first of its kind in Islamic capital market product in Indonesia. He is also appointed as Sharia expert team for sukuk issuance by private companies in Indonesia. He was Sharia business advisor lead for Deloitte Indonesia. Prior to this appointment, he was director of Ziko Sharia Indonesia. He was attached with ISRA, International Sharia Research Academy and Islamic Finance Malaysia, as researcher after completing his tenure as visiting scholar at Islamic Business School, UUM Malaysia. And he was appointed as Deputy Director for Academic Affairs at Institute of Tazkiyah Indonesia. He began to serve the industry when he joined Namira Venture, Singapore, as Assistant Vice President. He was involved in some Sharia advisory and provide designated training for professionals in the field of Sharia audit, Islamic bank, and other for Islamic financial institution. Mashallah, today we are very delighted to have Ustaz Ahmad Afandi Mahfud with us, and Ustaz Ahmad Afandi Mahfud will talk more about the halal trade finance and integration between OIC countries. تفضل أستاذي.
Thank you very much. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Afandi, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but the sound, the connection might be slightly. Oh, really unfortunate. Okay, it's really unfortunate. The connection was not in the best form just now. I think we are going to move to answer some question first while we are waiting for. Oh, okay. Afandi is joining us. Right? No problem. Oh, really unfortunate.
I repeat again, I would like to thank to the organizer for inviting this wonderful event, and of course, yeah. Can you hear? Hello, hello.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I repeat once again, I would like to thank to the organizer for inviting this wonderful event. Of course, because I can see Professor Sain Kayudi from Karabakh University. So once in future, we can meet you in person. And then, of course, I'd like to say Assalamualaikum to Ustad. Very happy to see you here. And of course, to the moderator, my twin brother, although we have the same name.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon in Durham, inshallah, this month. Or next month, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
All right. Okay. I think my presentation. Can I have some? Okay. Anyone can help me to share the slide, please?
The committee, can you help sharing? Okay, that's great.
All right. So the topic on my presentation is halal trade finance, integration between OIC countries. I think the word of trade finance is, of course, we know this very well, but whenever we come to the practice of Islamic banking, for example, or maybe among the OIC countries, it's not easy to understand how is actually the reality of trade finance, especially the halal trade finance and related to the export, imports, goods and services among the OIC countries. And of course, we can see how the growth of every country in OIC countries, for example, Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on. But the issue here is how actually good integrations. How can we have a good integration between the countries? I mean, the member of OIC countries, so that we can have a good bilateral relationship, not only in the politics but also in economy, but particularly in the halal sector. So we can imagine, for example, the advantage of Turkey, of Indonesia, Malaysia, and mashallah, we can see also other part of the world in the OSCE countries members, they have very good and very what you call untapped, many untapped potential of halal sector to be explored among the OSCE countries. But the issue here is how the integration should be, and this is on what do you call, how the integration between these countries. Okay, next. Right, we can see here the global Islamic finance industry and scattered in every regions. For example, in Asia, in GCC, in Middle East and South, and Africa, and so on. We can see different performance of Islamic fund industry. And interestingly, for example, if we compare ASEAN and GCC, the Islamic banking assets, you can see 287. If you compare to the GCC region, very far gap. I mean, the deep gap between the Asian and also GCC countries. And interestingly, if you look at the sukuk outstanding, so we can see the contrast performance between Asian and the GCC countries. We can see the sukuk outstanding, much better compared to the Islamic banking asset in Asians. But if you can see in GCC, is the what do you call, the vice versa, or the opposite side of the Asian countries. Only what they call 332.3 compared to the ASEAN counterparts. And if you look at another particularly, and maybe other part of Asian countries, like say in the center of Asia, right? We can see very sluggish growth of Islamic finance. For example, in Islamic banking, in sukuk, or even until takaful. So in total, we can see the share, banking sector still, dominating the growth. We can see here 68.7% compared to the sukuk 25.4%. And if we relate to the halal trade finance between the OIC countries, once again, you can see there must be something wrong with the Islamic bank this year, higher compared to the sukuk outstanding or Islamic fund or maybe takaful. So what they call the halal trade finance integration relationship, import and import commodities in the halal sector should be better. But if you look at the what they call the specific one, okay, we can see that halal sector is a very what they call small contribution to the asset, I mean Islamic banking assets, the growth of Islamic banking, so that we can boost outstanding among the Okay, next, please. Right. Now, if you look at Indonesia, this is just to share with you the data on how Indonesia look at the position among the OSCE member countries, where we can see here, there are two what do you call picture here. Number one, we can see Indonesia, is the biggest GDP among OSCE country members, and then also Indonesia considered as the second most competitive country, how to attract FDI coming to the country, I mean coming to Indonesia. And of course, this is actually we can see because of the huge population of Indonesia. I mean because Indonesia considered as the largest Muslim population compared to the other OSCE countries, and of course there are many untapped potential of the industry for the halal sector here. But if you look at the data based on the Global Islamic Report 2022, Indonesia is #1 in terms of the consumer of the halal sector. I mean the food and beverage. So I'm not sure whether it is because Indonesia, we like to eat more and we like to drink more, right? Because because according to this data, Indonesia considered as the largest and even #1 in the world of the consumer of the food and also beverage, halal food and beverage. But again here, if look at the contribution to GDP and we compare to other countries among the OECD, Indonesia is still what we call having good number compared to others. And including the policy, I mean the government policy, particularly in the second term of the Jokowi presidents, okay, during his regime. If you compare with the first regime, we had some of attempts. The first policy of what we call economic policy until 12 attempt of the government policy in order to boost, and to balance the trade and balance for the government. But of course, we see the result is not really successful. And that is why in the second term of this government, we can see how the progress of this growth, particularly for the sector. But again, whenever we look at the halal sector here, right, it is something beyond the expectations. Because if you look at the two, what we call the two sector, I mean the GDP and also the FDI, what they call Indonesia should have a good opportunity for other countries compared to other countries in terms of the investment, in terms of the GDP growth, if we compare with the halal sector. Okay, next. Right. So how Indonesian performance of international trade among OECD countries? This is the real data. Okay. So if you look at here, according to the Halal Report 2022, it shows that Indonesia among the top 4 net exporter of halal food industry and top 3 net export Muslim fashion industry. This is in line with the master plan of halal sector that Ustaz Fali Rahman has mentioned before. And of course, it is the follow-up of the previous master plan of Islamic economy to 2019 and 2024. So there is another also a master plan by the OJK and also by the Central Bank of Indonesia that in line with how to make Indonesia as the global halal hub. In line with this policy and also master plan, the government also has set up regional halal hub in every province, in every district, and this is something that is still in the progress of the government as an effort, how to maximize the sector, I mean the halal sector in the country. And if you look at the data here among the top OECD countries for international trade and service, we can see here Turkey, of course. Congratulations to Prof. Saim because you are #2 here as the top exporters compared to Indonesia, and then after Turkey, Malaysia, and Qatar, Egypt, and after that Indonesia. So we are makmum from all you. All right, we are the follower of Turkey and also Malaysia. And then if you look at on the right side here, the top 10 OECD countries in international trade and commodities. On the left side is the trade and service, and on the right side is trade and commodities. And then now, I think still, we have to follow our imam from Malaysia and also from Turkey, because, we are still lagging behind these two countries. So this is, something that we have to consider how to take some of the advantage from these countries, because if we look at the national capacity today, there are still huge untapped opportunity, like I said earlier, that Indonesia actually, to be a key player in this sector, particularly, in other part of the halal sector, because we know we have some sector of halal, and now in Indonesia there are some, according to research, okay, for example, pharmacy and also cosmetics and also fashion. These are, I think, something that we need to explore more, and then we have to be very in order to dig the potential and boost the sector until our position become imam, and then right, so like Turkey or maybe even like Malaysia. Okay, next. Okay, now what are actually the untapped potential of halal product and export in Indonesia? This is something because I now have Prof. Saim from Turkey, I now have Ustad Fadli from Malaysia. You can see how this is, the data from the governments. You can see if you want to invest, these are, the sector that you need to give your money to our country. Okay, I promote my country here. Please, Ustad Fadil and also Prof. Saim come to our country and invest in the sectors. Just choose, all right? We have a food, we have fashion, we have a pharmacy, like I said earlier. We have cosmetic, right? So these are the potential that I think we can see, and we can collaborate even, right? In order to have a good integrations between the member of the OECD countries. Okay, next. And then we can see also how the opportunity, competency, and of course the challenge here, right? And these are something that we need to consider seriously. For example, we have some big companies like in the food, like Temposcan, Calbee, Garuda Food. This name of the company we know very well, and they are producing very good and very high quality of product. And even I think some of their product also in Turkey, in what do you call Malaysia, for example, Indomie, right? Whenever I went to what is, Prof, the name of the mountain in Turkey, in Istanbul? I forgot. I found this Indomie, in the up of the mountains. It's a very interesting because
Çamlıca. Çamlıca. No,
yeah. We have to go by cable car, and very high in the high position and very cool, right? And then I found Uludag. Yes, correct. Uludag. You're very surprised, in that situation. Okay, in that location, I can find Indomie, right? And of course, in Malaysia, we can find everywhere. I mean, and even Indofood can compete with local companies in Malaysia for this kind of food. So this is actually how we can integrate. Just simple example. And of course, in Africa as well, okay, there are some Indonesian food and so on. So integration is something, a challenge, but at the same time also it is a opportunity for us to integrate, and we can see how these are the challenge, all right? And I hope this is something, a beginning of our reflection in our country in order to have a good integration within our countries. Okay, next.
Dr. Fandi, we'd like to remind you there will be 2 more minutes for your presentation.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I just skip this one because I don't need to define what is actually the intra-trade here. All right, it is on the integration actually, and between the OECD countries. And sometimes because we don't understand what is actually the real meaning of intra-trade here. So that is why, in order to understand the integrations, we need also to understand first what's actually the intra-trade. Okay, next. Right, this is a little bit on very academic ones because according to some research, right, there is a methodology of Ummah integrations. And this methodology is something that we have to consider, like I mentioned earlier, how to have a good integration between the OECD countries. And this is according to the literatures, right? There is what we call as a Tauhid epistemology in order to have integrations, and how this Tauhid epistemology can be implemented in OECD countries. And there are 2 ways, right? Number one is parametric, and the other one is non-parametric one. Parametric one, there are some measures like, for example, GDP or macro variable, and non-parametric one is something that like Maqasid Sharia and so on. So this is if I was talking about the practice one, now I'm talking about the academic side. So I think this is something based on the previous research on how the integration should be between the OSCE member countries. Okay, next. And also this one, the formula. Okay, because and actually there is another formula for instead of this formula, in order how to what they call to understand the Tawhidi epistemology, in order to have integration between the OSCE countries. And of course, it is something like a parametric. And there is another thought from Ibn Khaldun, for example, with regard to the what they call the investment between one country to another country, and very interesting this one, as he reflected in Al-Muqaddimah, right? And there is also a very good example if we see how some variables can influence the integration between the OSCE countries, not only from the parametric side but also from non-parametric ones. Okay, next.
Excuse me, Ustad Afandi, I think it's very interesting, but I think we can give a chance for a question, and maybe some of the material can be covered during the question and answer session.
Okay.
Again, I'd like to thank all the speakers for interesting and highly beneficial speech. So now we are moving to question and answer session. We have some written question, and probably there will be one or two asking question live. I'd like to read the question written here. The first from Ustad Yayan Firmansyah. Ustad Yayan Firmansyah is one of our lecturer at the University of Darussalam Gontor. So he's mentioning, I find it important to develop a strong intergovernmental network among Muslim countries to strengthen the halal industry to serve the ummah. But why such a network has not been established yet? The question, why such a network has not been established yet? And what are the main enablers and obstacles in developing such a network? So I think we're going to tackle the question one by one. Ustad Saim, would you please kindly answer this question, or you want to ask another speaker to answer the question?
Well, I think, thank you very much for the beautiful questions from Dr. Yayan. It's very important question, actually. Might be the most important, how to create collaboration and connection between Muslim countries. I think the most important, we can get the answer from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna khalaqnakum
Shu'uban
لتعارفوا. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us differently, different culture. Why? To come together, to have collaborations, to have all kind of networks. So from that vision, I think what we need to first to know each other, to meet like this platforms, and then visiting, coming, and then what we do to make trade, business between us first. If something I can get from Indonesia, from Malaysia, I have to get from them first. If I couldn't find from them, then find out from other countries. I think this is the main thing that we need to do. How to create? That actually comes from the government level. We have to encourage the government level, the politicians, and make them, to guide to the right direction, and then inshallah things will be done easily. I believe that.
Thank you, Prof. Prof. Fadli Rahman. Prof. Fadli Rahman, do you have any suggestion for this question?
For the first question?
Yes, the first question.
So, yes, I agree with Prof. It's very important to have collaboration between the, especially among the OIC countries. So right now we have initiative, I think already taken by Turkey and also by SMIC OIC. So maybe we can look further the collaboration to strengthen the collaboration between the countries, especially among the OIC countries, to ensure that the halal industry is being developed properly, inshallah.
Thank you. Ustad Ahmad Afandi, do you have remarks on this point?
Yeah, actually, it is a very much related on my my presentations, okay, because integration is the issue, but also the challenge for all of the OIC member countries. What I can say here is that number one is the Tawhid paradigm of everyone, of every country. Whenever we have one Tawhid, one religion, one Iman, one faith, one belief, okay, then, everything, will be keep silence. Everything, because we have one Tawhid, then, as we are brotherhood, or we are, in the one religion, and this I think become the priority for everything. And then second one is the political will, right? So political is a very important, okay, because particularly for the bilateral and also multilateral relationship, not only among the Turkey and Indonesia, Malaysia, but also other part of OIC member countries. And because by having strong political power, strong political initiative by the governments, right, everything can be done easily. According to the UCP 600, okay, UCP 600 is the regulation for trade finance of everything, including halal sector. There is no such regulation to use USD as a currency to be used for the export and import within any other countries. So this is something that we can use, our own currency. For this, just an example, right? So by having a strong political will, I think we can trade not using USD. We can use ringgit, we can use lira, and so on and so forth. And even without money, we can, use something like a barter and exchange of commodities. And this is, can be materialized only due to the political will or strong political will from the every government. I think that's all from my side.
Michelle, that's very interesting insight. Okay, we're moving to the next question. The next question is to be specific to Dr. Fadli Rahman. So the question, like observing the high contribution of halal industry in Malaysia to Malaysian GDP. So he's asking, how is the management of halal value chains and halal supply chains in Malaysia? Yes, Professor Azidni.
Okay.
Thank you
for the question. Basically, in Malaysia, since 2006, we have one dedicated agencies which called as Halal Development Corporation, HDC, which has been granted by the government to ensure that the development of halal industry is in place in Malaysia, is being structured in proper way in Malaysia. So from that, HDC been established. Then they have developed what we call as Halal Industry Master Plan since 2008. Okay, and then continue with the second Halal Industry Master Plan in 2018 to ensure that the halal industry is contributing to the economic sectors in Malaysia. That's why I think in reply to this question, it's very important, as said by Dr. Akmal Effendi, that it's very important in terms of political will of the halal governance, especially in Malaysia, because there are many initiatives, in terms of to develop halal industry, but we need centralized governance, which is in Malaysia we have Halal Development Corporation, and then been enlarged into the bigger structure, what we call as Halal Industry Development Council, which involve more agencies in Malaysia. It is not about HDC alone, but it's also involved what we call as JAKIM as the halal certification body. We have Ministry of Health, we have Department of Veterinary Services, and many more agencies that involve in developing halal industry in Malaysia. I think that's all for the answer for the question.
Okay, just one follow-up question. So the halal industry master plan, of course, it's decided by the government, but what was like the intellectual push to the birth of that halal industry master plan? That there should be something behind that. Can you recall that?
So basically, in Malaysia, we have started this halal initiative or halal industry development since 1960s or 1970s. So basically, we just focus on the market and also the certification. But in terms of to sustain in industry, in terms of to develop the halal industry, we need more initiative or more efforts to ensure that the halal industry is at the peak, at least we call as equivalent to other standards in other world, such as when we talk about halal, maybe what we think about is the safety, the hygienic. But in terms of halal industry, we need to have a value proposition, what we call value proposition, its own value proposition, not what we call as is not compared to other industry. So that's why we need very strict or very good halal industry development in Malaysia compared to other management system in other world.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Just now, okay, we have one more question here. But before this question, I want to sneak my own question. We have some challenge here when it comes to the certification of halal certification. Some notice that one of the challenge is that sometimes, in some cases, it's costly in some cases. And then the challenge how to push the growth of small and medium enterprises and to give them incentive to have the access to that. So maybe we want to learn from Turkey and Malaysia, and might be also from Ustad Ahmad Afendi's insight for what happened in Indonesia, or maybe what is going to be suggested steps to promote this. Maybe we'll start from Ustad Saim. Yes, please, Ustad Saim.
Actually, this is certification is a big challenge. Actually, somehow it becomes a big problem because when we look at around the world, especially Europe countries, even Muslim countries, there are a lot certification bodies. Of course, it's connected to standardization, certification, accreditation, conformity assessment. These are all together. When we look at, for example, some institutions or organizations, they are giving halal certificates, but how they are giving by their own selves, by their own understanding, without any regulations, without any standards. I know recently in Europe countries, more than 100 certification bodies. Some of them, they are not Muslim even. Can you imagine? They are giving halal certificates. So with that reason, united certificators and Muslim countries should come together and at least they give some accreditation on certain bodies and issued it. With that reason, I think IC's work is quite important in that sense. For example, Malaysia, mashallah, under Jakim is doing very well. Hopefully, when they come together and create some certain rules and regulations to work together. Otherwise, honestly, it's going to be so big problem because how can we say, the market is so high and everybody wants to take it because the latest market is actually 5 trillion. Can you imagine? Dr. Fadli mentioned, my God, everybody wants to take it. So as the Muslim needs to organize and make it by government level that it is very essential and sensitive. I believe that. Thank you.
I can highly relate to what Professor Saim has mentioned, because I observed like one of the convenience store here, they will simply mention that vegetarian food as halal. They will simply label it, and they have like in their store, in their application, we can filter halal, but basically they will just kind of convert the list of vegetarian food into the halal food, which is disastrous because sometimes, like for example, like cheese, sometimes cheese will they might not list that halal that non-halal substance in their ingredients, but in the process, some of cheese are using some non-halal ingredients. We want to hear from Ustaz Fadlur Rahman, what's your experience? Especially just now, I'm talking about what is the solution, or maybe what is the innovation for the small and medium enterprises to get access to halal certification? Yeah.
So my answer regarding that question, basically in terms of halal certification, we can consider it as it is a process. It's a process of mature. Basically in Malaysia itself, as we start from 1960s or 1970s, we start with halal food only, and halal food only for certification. And there is a demand to extend this certification to non-food, such as cosmetics and consumer goods. And then we can see that I think past 2000s, there are more and more demand on the halal products. And then the halal products expand to the non-foods and also to the services, such as in Malaysia, we have established a few, I think, almost 40 standards regarding on halal matters, starting from halal food, and then the latest one is halal profession right now. For example, in terms of requirement for halal profession itself, the requirement at the early stages is very mild. The requirement is only put that the companies or the organization just to have Muslim workers is enough. So they need to have the what we call it proper training, proper education, qualification, and then it started to be start as a requirement for halal executive is from 2009. So we can see that the times that we take from the early stages to the right now, when we talk about halal talent development, okay, ecosystem, same as in terms of development of entrepreneurs amongst the small and medium. We have a negative perception for the halal certification, that halal certification is about we need a more cost. We need a lot of financial to have the halal certificate. Basically, in Malaysia, the fee is very low. Basically, in Malaysia, we have divided the fee into four category of in the company. First, we have for large company, large company, which is the fee is 1,000 per year for large companies, and then for medium companies is about 700 per year, and then for small company or small industry is 400 per year, and then for the micro company, our micro industry is only 100 per year. So basically, in terms of to comply with halal certification, basically they are also involved consultation, and that's why when we talk about halal certification, it's very low cost or non-expensive. Basically, the higher cost is because of the involvement of the consultation to get the halal certification. That's why in Malaysia, the authority is very strict to the involvement of halal consultant in Malaysia. That's why when the small industries, the micro industry want to have halal certificate, they can directly go to the authority, or they can go to the agencies that can assist them to have the halal certificate. For example, we have Department of Agriculture, we have SME Corporation in Malaysia that can help this industry to have halal certificate with cheaper price or cheaper fee. Wallahu alam.
That's interesting. And then it's very interesting because like all kind of like industry, when the halal industry achieve its like economy of scale, it should be available in fewer, I mean in cheaper of course. So I think I completely agree that we shouldn't stick on the notion that the certification is expensive. Of course, if the company is big and there's a lot to investigate, of course it's going to cost us a lot, but then when it's small, then it should cost smaller. But then this kind of reality means that certification is not something that we need to question. I mean, like certification, we need to move with this certification, but then bringing all of the ecosystem, providing a very high level, for example, high level service for big company, and then even like smaller surface, I mean, easier surface and maybe simpler surface for micro industry. Very interesting. From Ustad Ahmad Effendi.
Yeah. I think if you look at the Indonesian experience, if the issue is the cost, then I think the government has to subsidy. I mean, and I think, and I believe there are some subsidies for the micro enterprises who are doing the halal sector. For example, from the Ministry of what they call Finance, Ministry of Village, Ministry of Cooperative, and so on. And also, we have very good ecosystem. For example, crowdfunding, crowdfunding, you know, with this sector particularly focusing on the enterprises. I mean, small, medium, and enterprises. So if I can conclude, there are two matters here, pertinent issues. Number one is the internal issues and the external one. Internal is the subsidy of the government. If the issue is the cost only, but more important than you know, the cost is actually the ecosystem, like you know, Ustaz Fadli mentioned earlier, is a very, very important, you know, because if only the cost the problem, you can see, you know, how many you know, SME doing the halal sector register for their certifications. If there are large number of, you know, application, of course, then, you know, the price can be reduced. So I think the issue is not only about the cost of expensive and so on. Okay, it is more on that one. And from the external sector, I think, so like I said earlier, is the integration and the government policy, the you know, the political will of the governments. Okay, let's say between Indonesia, Malaysia, and Turkey, for example. So if we have very good common understanding and so on, I think you know, nothing is impossible for us to collaborate more, to trade and to exchange our commodities in halal sector. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much. I have two more questions. This one is from anonymous attendee. The question is about COVID-19 pandemic has caused fall in halal industry market share. So what is best policy from Islamic government to stimulate growth? I think to make it a little bit more efficient, I think for this question, I will give it to Ustad Effendi. And then the last question, I will give it to Ustad Fadli Rahman, and finally to Ustad Said Padibi. Okay, so would you please kindly reply this question, Ustad Effendi, Ahmad Effendi?
Yeah, of course, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has not only lead to the unstable economic, but also to the health of the human life and many things, right? But particularly if you talk about the halal sector, then the key is actually the innovations, all right? Because technology, the adoption of, you know, technology, the implementation of the innovations, you know, for every sector, I think that's the key. Even, you know, in a banking sector, right? So now, now is actually by having a good innovation technology, we can have good financial inclusions, okay, for the people living in remote area, for example, right, and so on. So I think in moving forward after the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we can sort of, you know, resolve this issue. I mean, the pandemic, you know, COVID-19, and even not only pandemic, maybe, you know, other disease, for example, we don't know in future. But if we have good preparation in terms of innovations, okay, how to innovate, you know, the finance, how to innovate, you know, the to integrate, right, and between the final sector and also the micro enterprises, for example, in our sector, I think that's, you know, can be easily implemented. That's from my side.
Okay, thank you very much. And now come to the last question from Umid Bayrakar. The question, can you kindly explain how this conference affect the halal industry in USA and Europe? Because they are all, in reality not halal practically, especially in the issue. I want to start with Ustad Fadli Rahman. Yeah, Ustad Fadli.
So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so basically, I think the question, I think the question he's observing the phenomenon in the USA and the UK and some other countries in Europe where people are labeling their food as halal, but that them is not halal, and then especially in the practice of zabiha, especially. Might be his question is, so what is our real contribution? What is this our real contribution, or what is our takeaway from this conference to address this issue?
Okay, in my understanding regarding this question is, there is a different understanding on the concept of slaughtering when we talk about in industry scale. For example, part of the country is accepting in terms of what we call as stunning practices or sticking practices in slaughtering. So some of the understanding that they mentioned that the stunning or the sticking process is prohibited. Okay, but in terms of in Malaysian practices, that we have fatwa regarding these practices in terms of stunning and sticking. So in terms of stunning, that is practices before or prior to slaughtering, we must to ensure that the practices is not make that the animal is dead. It is just in terms of unconscious for a while, and then the animal can be awakened again. They say that is the principle in terms of stunning, that we cannot stun until the animal is dead. Same as the sticking practices after we slaughtered. That we need to cut the vein that is the nearest point to the heart of the animal. So part of the fatwa said that we need to make sure that the slaughter is complete before we do the sticking practices. And then there are a time that we cannot do the sticking just after we slaughtered. We need a time, maybe about 30 seconds or 1 minute, then we can do the sticking. Okay, so that's why in terms of when we talk about industry scale, there are restriction in terms of regulation in certain countries that the animal need to be stunning prior to slaughter in terms of animal welfare. So that's why in term a few understanding that they consider that the stunning and then the sticking is prohibited. That's why they create another what we call as certification that called as zabiha. That means that the slaughtering is not involved of stunning or sticking during the slaughtering process. That's what I understand according to this question.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the insight, of course. Okay, now we want to have khitam mumisk. Hatta yakun khitam mumisk. We'll listen from our professor Sam KDB and maybe also a concluding remark to this conference.
I just would like to thank you, the questioner, asking the role of this conference, how help the European people. As far as I know that this conference, inshallah, will create awareness, both Muslim people and non-Muslim people in Europe and USA, that the halal issue is mainly the Muslims matter, which means when it comes to slaughtering, we should follow the Muslims' regulations, Sharia law. Otherwise, when it comes to European understanding, they understand differently. Halal issue is something just only, business, but it is actually a religious issue. We should explain them that is actually religious issue and has certain regulations and certain principles. Because when I used to be the chairman of European Halal Standards Committee, we had been facing a lot complicated understanding about halal issues. When you slaughtered things that becomes halal, no, as brother Fadl mentioned, that it's, for example, it comes to stunning, it comes to who is slaughtering, it comes to hygienic, it comes to many other things, whether you slaughtered in the way of Islamic way or not. So, I mean, we should explain them. This is firstly, religious issue, and then the other issues comes. Inshallah, I believe that this conference will create awareness, and both Muslim and non-Muslim people understand this issue, and inshallah will make better for both sides, inshallah.
MashaAllah, barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khairan. And once more, I'd like to thank all the speaker or presenter in today's conference, Ustaz Saim Khaidibi, Ustaz Rahman, and Ustaz Ahmad Afandi. Thank you so much for the insights, the knowledge, your experience, all what have you said enriched me personally, and everybody must be benefiting from this conference. And inshallah, as you've mentioned, at the very least, we have that kind of awareness. So next time we are walking on the aisle of the confidence store, we can question, and this question can be some bigger movement, maybe in the term of your community, or maybe in the level of state, or in the level of national level, and hopefully, inshallah, it will be like international or global movement where we all aware about this. Like you have mentioned just now, this is not only about business, but this is something that become our basic needs that all Muslims needed to ensure our prosperity in this life. Again, thank you so much, and thank you for all the participants and all active participants for asking questions, and thank you for all the managing committee for this conference. Thank you so much, and we are going to close this session by reciting Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Amin.
Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Thank you again. Thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakumullah, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ustaz Khalid, terima kasih.
Thank you,
Prof.
Dr. Afandi, Prof.
Ya.
Saim.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Okay.
See you in Durham, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shukran, Ustaz Pedra. Shukran, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for all the attendees. Thank you for your participation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.